It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon, Liberia, Tanzania. Good afternoon to you, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana. Good afternoon to you, Eswatini. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami. Let's clock in at the news desk for the latest local, continental and international news with Jwalane Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Top stories this hour. Various organizations hand over a memorandum to the Union Buildings in Pretoria, South Africa, and a Libyan war crime suspect arrested. Good afternoon. Various organizations, including Defence South Africa and the Mkhonto weSizwe Party, have handed over a memorandum to the Union Buildings in Pretoria. They are calling for President Cyril Ramaphosa to step down as president. They say if he fails to do so, they will continue with their marches.
And we're going to continue picketing and protesting up until we get him out of the office. So it's the people's voice that's going to take him out of the office, no matter when or no matter how long it's going to take. But the fact is, at the end, you're going to take him out of the office.
We need Cyril Ramaphosa to step down because he's the one who makes us the foreigners to be against us.
A handful of people turned up for a planned protest march in Cape Town in the Western Cape province in support of KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The group called Put South Africa First says they will continue to support the cause for clean governance. They delivered a memorandum of grievances at the provincial legislature to a representative of Premier Ellen Winde, calling on corrupt leaders to voluntarily resign from office. First organizer Monde Bambelo.
Our grievances is crime. Our grievances is corruption. Our grievances, there is no one that is getting punished for the crimes that they commit, particularly from up there. They get away with murder. Once you secure a leadership position, you get away with anything. And we are saying enough is enough. We are tired as citizens.
The International Criminal Court, ICC, has confirmed that a wanted Libyan war crime suspect has been arrested in Germany. German prosecutors say the suspect was detained in Frankfurt on Wednesday. The BBC's Anna Holligan reports.
Khalid Mohammed Ali al-Hishri, commonly known as al-Bouti, is alleged to have been one of the most senior officials at the Mitiga prison complex, where thousands of people were detained. He's suspected of having committed, ordered or overseen crimes including murder, torture and rape. The atrocities were allegedly committed in the detention unit in Tripoli in the 5 years from 2015. Al-Bouti will remain in detention in Germany until arrangements are made for him to be surrendered to the ICC's custody.
South Africa's Health Department says although it understands the burden that undocumented migrants have placed on the country's health services, it cannot deny them access. Yesterday, members of the civil movement Operation Tudula marched to the offices of the South African Human Rights Commission in Johannesburg to hand over a memorandum of grievances. Operation Tudula wants the authorities to make South Africans a priority in accessing basic services, including healthcare. The department spokesperson, Foster Mohale, says everyone has the right to access health services irrespective of their immigration status.
But also proposing solutions to address this issue on a long term, because we strongly believe that this is a societal issue. It's not only about health. With regards to access to healthcare, especially Section 27, also supported by the National Health Act and other pieces of legislation, which says we cannot deny anyone access to health purely because of their immigration status or their nationality for a number of reasons.
Israel says it will allow Syrian security forces to deploy in southern Syria for the next 2 days, citing ongoing unrest in the province of Suwaida. Renewed clashes are reported there between Druze and Bedouin tribes despite a ceasefire. The BBC's Lina Sinjab has the story.
The situation is really volatile and dire. We've heard about how many have been killed so far inside Sweda. There are reports of still tribal fighters from the Bedouin surrounding the city trying to enter. There hasn't been any confirmation that they've approached or advanced into the city at all. The government from its side said that they are not redeploying any forces at the moment, whether from the security or from the army.
Recapping the top story this hour, various organizations, including Build South Africa and the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, have handed over a memorandum to the union buildings in Pretoria. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois are both set to bank record amounts of prize money for their fight. And Manchester United agreed to break the bank to sign Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 7 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Welcome to Africa in Business Africa. A lot in store for you this afternoon. It's not just any day. It is International Mandela Day, a day of goodwill, of service to mankind and humanity. And I tell you what, I certainly am dressed for the part as we spent most part of this morning in one of the townships in South Africa building and, making sure that accommodation is provided for families who are in need. More on that a bit later on this afternoon as we also focus on the role of corporates in ploughing back into the communities and also the role of public-private partnerships in alleviating poverty and dealing with the drawbacks that so many communities around the world experience. But we start here this afternoon. South Africa's Reserve Bank Governor, Lesitsha Kganyago, says even though inflation has eased across the G20 countries, it does remain above the desired levels. His comments come as concerns remain high about inflation rising in the latter part of the year. And this is largely because of the US trade tariffs that have caused uncertainty in global trade. He was speaking at the third Finance Ministers and Central Bankers meeting, which is taking place on the outskirts of Durban, KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa. Dimakatso Leshuru has found this report.
It's a tricky time for decision makers in the financial industry gathering here in Zimbabwe on the outskirts of the coastal city of Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. As the third and final meeting of finance ministers and central bankers gets underway, the elephant in the room is the loud absence of high-level representatives from the world's leading economy and whether the leader of the free world will actually attend these talks come November. That's not the end of the uncertainty, but Donald Trump's tariffs that have turned global trade upside down, and even worse is the impact that this may have on inflation and global economic growth. Lesitsha Kganyago, South Africa's central bank governor, says making monetary policy decisions in this environment is a challenge.
That in itself makes it a complex task in framing up the policy responses that you would have to take. There are a number of difficulties in assessing the impact, and we are not the only one. Even the US Fed, they found that they struggle to assess the impact of the tariffs on the US economy. So in our analysis, we first have to understand the impact of the tariffs on the US economy, what it would mean for output growth and what it would mean for inflation, because then it determines what the monetary policy stance in the US would be and then what the global financial conditions would look like. It affects the cost of capital across.
Kganyago says increased government borrowing is driving high deficits and fiscal pressures.
Bank for International Settlements analysis shows that credit growth is now driven more by lending to governments than to private sector, reflecting persistently high deficits and fiscal pressures. This evolving landscape raises the stakes on the interaction between fiscal and monetary policy, especially in avoiding fiscal dominance and maintaining financial stability.
South Africa's Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana says uncertainty continues to weigh on growth, adding to the vulnerability of many African economies.
While the continent is rich in opportunity, it continues to face significant challenges, ranging from infrastructure deficit and climate vulnerability to constrained fiscal space and limited access to long-term private capital. In this context, the Combat with Africa initiative remains a promising platform for fostering reform-driven investment partnership between African countries and the private sector.
Another issue under discussion is how best to ensure natural catastrophes. Kganyago says this is both urgent and consequential for both developed and emerging market economies, as the frequency and intensity of natural disasters continues to grow, causing significant damage to property and infrastructure.
From a central banking perspective and financial stability perspective, this is not a peripheral issue, but a core issue. Uninsured losses from natural disasters can undermine economic stability, threaten the solvency of financial institutions, and disrupt credit flows. Moreover, when governments must step in with emergency funds or debt finance reconstruction, it places additional strain on already limited fiscal space. Bridging this protection gap is part of building macro-financial resilience.
For Channel Africa News in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, I'm Dimakatso Leshoro.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we turn our focus now to Namibia, where the country's statistics agency will conduct a pilot Namibia Financial Inclusion Survey. This will be taking place from Monday, the 21st of July to the 3rd of August 2025. And this entire survey is aimed at collecting data on how individuals as well as households access and use financial services. Statistics Agency says that once completed, the survey will access financial inclusion levels in Namibia, and will also help to guide the development of evidence-based policies that are aimed at creating an inclusive financial system that leaves no one behind in the country. To give us greater insight on this move, we joined on the line by Linda Shitenga, a manager of social statistics at the Namibia Statistics Agency. Really good to have you with us on Africa in Business this afternoon. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So this is not just a survey to count how many people there are in the country, the regular statistics that we are all accustomed to. This one is specifically geared towards assessing the financial health and accessibility of the financial industry and financial instruments in the country. Has this been done before? And if so, what type of results had you received?
This is the second one that the Namibia Statistics Agency is conducting. The previous one was in 2017. And then the results shows that in 2017 it was 78 people, or the population of the Namibian population was financially included, and then the rest were excluded.
So 78% of Namibians were included financially in the last, in the last, or the first pilot survey, which was done in 2017. And what did that information or data inform as far as the provision of financial services for Namibians?
So basically all this information, normally when we collect it, it informs now us or the public or the government of Namibia to build better picture, to just have a better picture of how the Namibian use and understand the financial services, and also so that at the end of the day, we can improve the access and the support in terms of financial services for every Namibian.
I guess when you're doing statistics like this, and in order to get accurate results, you have to really ensure that all demographics and different sectors of society are represented. How do you go about ensuring that you do cover the various areas of the population as well as the demographics?
Okay, so basically the financial inclusion survey is a nationally it's a national survey, and then the statistics are also produced at a national level. So what we do, we follow a systematic sampling system that ensures that all populations or eligible population in Namibia have the same equal chance of being included in the sample.
And what could have changed between 2017 and 2025, do you believe, that might impact the results that you receive after this survey has been completed?
That one we are still yet to see, because currently we are just busy with a pilot survey that is now scheduled to start on Monday. So from that now, once we go to the main survey, which is scheduled for October, November, then we'll be able now to see what has changed in terms of now all the financial products that, based on the result that we are going to get. So for now, we don't really have much to say what has happened. That's why now we want to conduct this survey just for us to see what has changed.
It would be quite interesting.
How was the previous result used?
It would be quite interesting to see the impact that COVID might have had, and even perhaps the financial standing of various countries, how that might have impacted people's affordability and people's use of financial services. But perhaps let's start getting a little bit more specific now, looking at the specific areas of financial inclusion that the survey will be focusing on.
Can you repeat again?
Sure. Could you highlight perhaps some of the specific areas of financial inclusion that the survey is going to be focusing on?
Okay, the survey will help us understand how people manage their money in their everyday life. So we'll look at how they save, whether they save at home in groups like the stock sales or they save in banks. We'll also explore how people borrow money, in terms whether they borrow from banks or they go for informal lenders or they maybe borrow from friends and family. And then another important part is also, how do people make payments? Do they make payments using cash? Do they pay by mobile money, or do they pay by using bank cards? And then additionally, the survey will also look at people's financial knowledge and skills, what we normally call financial literacy. So at the end of the day, we want to understand how well people know their financial products that are available on the market, how confident they are in making money decisions, and whether they feel in control of their financial lives. So at the end of the day, all this information will help us now understand, or just have a better picture of how Namibians use and understand financial services.
And is there anything specific, Linda, that you would like respondents to know before they actually even take part in this survey?
As said before, this is going to be a pilot survey that will be conducted from next week onwards. So we just urge all households, or the selected households, to take part, and that the information that they will provide will be kept fully confidential and will just be used for the research purposes. So by households participating in this survey, they are also helping us improve the financial services for all Namibians. So yeah, their input will really help shape a better future for everyone.
And so where does this information go to after it has been collated? I'm just wondering, what is the relationship between the social statistics agency in Namibia and business? Because ultimately it is business that designs a lot of these financial instruments.
So the Namibia Statistics Agency is mandated to collect, produce, analyze, and disseminate. So at the end of the day, once now the data has been collected, we do then analyze, and then we just disseminate now to all the users. And then our hope is that they use the statistics that we produce for better planning.
All right. Well, we thank you very much and wish you all the best for the survey, which starts on Monday, the 21st of July, and will go on all the way until the 3rd of August 2025. We thank you very much for your insight, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Linda Shitenga. She's the manager of social statistics at the Namibia Statistics Agency. She takes us to exactly 20 minutes after 4 p.m.
He was one man, but his spirit moved nations.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come.
Today, on Mandela Day, we celebrate the unity, resilience, and the hope that Nelson Mandela stood for. From Soweto to Dakar, Rwanda to Liberia. Tune in for special features, interviews, and stories that echo the heartbeat of the continent. Inspired by Madiba, because his story lives in all of us. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you that you chose to care.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 21 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Still coming up on the agenda for you this afternoon on Africa in Business. We'll be focusing on the call that has once again been made by trade unionists and activists who are calling on the G20 finance ministers to take action to tax the rich. How plausible is this, and what are the alternatives? We'll be talking this afternoon to the South African Tax Justice Working Group on their motivation and why they are pushing this particular agenda. And really, would this be the best solution out of the various options that governments and economies have? Because ultimately, the problems of inequality, of hunger, and resourcing for the public good, that definitely needs to be addressed. Now, the question is the how and the who. We also have our weekly business roundup with Victor Khumuswana, author of Africa is Open for Business. We'll take a look at Standard Chartered's Kenya's Sustainable Finance Assets. Really amazing results coming out of Kenya for Standard Charter, as well as Tanzania's efforts driving towards a digital economy, that also gaining momentum, and a couple of other stories that Victor will be touching on this afternoon. But here's where I'm going to park, and here's where we're going to go now. It is International Mandela Day, and Channel Africa, along with the SABC Foundation, in partnership with Habitat for Humanity South Africa, today were in the Orange Farm community in the Gauteng province. And why were we there? Actually, there were a couple of other corporates that were part of this entire initiative. We were all there to build homes for those in need. And this is part of the 67 minutes dedicated to community upliftment, and it's part of Mandela Day. I'd like to find out from you, in your neck of the woods, wherever it is that you may be listening from, is Mandela Day marked in your country? Are there individuals who are going out and staying true to the spirit of what Nelson Mandela stood for? Are there communities going out and helping those who are disadvantaged? Let us know if your company or if yourself as an individual or as a family or work group actually mark International Mandela Day. It's one of the things that Madiba really clearly stated. He said that today is not meant to be a holiday, but it is a day of service. And being the global icon that Madiba was, is this movement beyond the borders of South Africa? Have those who have seen the Nobel Prize winning Dr. Nelson Mandela, those who honored him, are they staying true to his legacy and the 67 years that he spent behind bars and the time that he sacrificed in order for the liberation of his people? We're going to have a conversation a little bit later on with Mbali Majola from Sanlam. But before we do that, let's take a look at another survey. And as you can guess, it's still all about the money. And South Africa observes National Savings Month this very month of July. Now, a survey has found that South Africans are borrowing simply to survive. Not good news at all. Borrowing for survival, not borrowing to invest or borrowing to grow your asset base, but borrowing for mere survival. Now, the Credit Utilization Survey for 2025, conducted by payday loan credit provider Wonga, is based on responses from over 12,000 participants, and what it uncovers is critical insights into how credit is being used across the country. Channel Africa's Thami Ngubeni has that report.
Payday cash loan credit provider Wonga says its latest credit utilization survey 2025 indicates that South Africans are borrowing to make ends meet, as it highlights that out of the 12,000 participants in the survey, 73% of credit users have no saving or emergency buffer. This further highlights the lack of a savings culture, with research showing that South Africans value saving but can't afford to do it. Furthermore, 88.5% of the respondents surveyed are currently using credit. Tina Manyanya, spokesperson for Wonga, says they surveyed participants from the lowest to the highest earning income groups.
We conducted a digital survey in June 2025 to better understand how South Africans are using credit and what drives their borrowing decisions. The survey received over 12,000 responses across 9 provinces, cutting across gender, age, and income groups. 60% of our respondents were female and 40% were male. We saw a wide range of incomes, from those earning less than 3,000 Rand a month to those earning over 100,000 Rand per month. The survey provides a true picture of financial behavior, why people borrow, whether it's for emergencies, day-to-day expenses, or developmental reasons like housing, education, and small business funding. Only 5% of respondents said informal lenders were their preferred credit option, but in reality, 15% had used a mashonisa in the past 12 months.
Mashonisa, or informal lenders in South Africa, have been accused of preying at the desperation of their customers by charging exorbitant interests, who usually turn to them as the last resort, as they do not meet the requirements to obtain credit from banks. Manyanya says low-income earners are mostly victims of this informal lending practice, with those surveyed indicating that the repayments were expensive for them.
Informal lenders are unregulated, often charging interest as high as 50% every month. 23% of respondents who used informal credit said it was their most expensive monthly repayment, leaving less money for essentials or investments in education, housing, or business. The rise of informal lenders is a symptom of access. 65% of respondents said they had been declined for formal credit, with most rejections happening in low-income groups. Around 15 million low-income South Africans are underserved by formal credit markets.
Many low and middle-income earners in South Africa are often stuck with no options of formal credit, as their income is deemed too low to qualify for large purchases such as homes and cars. Manyaka says the challenge is the country's credit regulation system, which doesn't speak to the realities of the country.
South Africa's credit regulation is world-class and designed for developed markets, but financial inclusion lags behind for low and middle income groups. The sections of the National Credit Act dealing with developmental credit are underdeveloped, with bureaucratic processes stifling access for those who need it most. Lenders and regulators must work together to draft a dedicated developmental credit framework that reflects the realities on the ground. Additionally, they must simplify affordability rules responsibly to include low-income earners without compromising consumer protection.
She has called on policymakers to craft an inclusive credit framework and also points to the significance of financial education.
Lastly, they must improve financial education. As we saw with 6% of our respondents who said they didn't know the difference between formal and informal lenders. better education, and access to affordable, safe developmental credit products could transform how people borrow and help unlock real economic mobility.
For Channel Africa News, I am Thami Ngubeni in Johannesburg.
It is exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time as we head over now to the markets desk, where Nosipho Zuma is standing by with the latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. In your business indicators, the SAWA, $1 is trading at 17.86 in South Africa. In Botswana, is trading at 13 Bula 296. In Namibia, it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 855. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha 14 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 401. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 137 birr 838. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 562. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 608. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 528. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 49 Egyptian pound 39. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 90. In Algeria, it is trading at 129 dirham 55. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 954. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,866 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,353 and platinum at $1,453 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $70.80 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you to Nosipho Zuma. She takes us to exactly 4:33 Central African time. If you have any stories that you'd like to share, stories that you believe would be of interest to our listeners, both on the African continent and in the diaspora, do send us your story leads to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. That's newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. Here's a reminder that we are live streaming on YouTube. You'll find us at Channel Africa 1. You'll get to meet your entire team. So you not only get to enjoy us using audio, but now video is attached to it as well. So that might just be your option of preference. Or you could also live stream us on SABC Plus app, which is available at the Google and Apple Play stores. We head over now to the sporting desk for the business of sport with Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And in our business of sport, thank you, Thami. We begin with boxing news. Ukrainian Alexander Usyk and British boxer Daniel Dubois are set to meet this weekend, and they are both set to bank record amounts of prize money. The heavyweights are set to be at Wembley in front of a sell-out crowd with the undisputed crown on the line. Since the start of Riyadh season, the exact prize money for fights is unknown, but reports have revealed some figures regarding the contest. They claim the total purse will be worth just over $200 million. This works out as roughly $233 million. That means the Ukrainian superstar will beg in the region of $113 million, and Dubois is set for $61 million. From Usyk's rematch with Fury, he earned $93 million, while Dubois collected $40 million for beating Anthony Joshua, and the amount of prize money has rocked the fighting world. On to football news, Manchester United agreed to a deal to sign Brian Mbeumo from Brentford to take summer spend past $162 million, finally striking terms with Bees to sign forward ahead of the Tottenham team. The Cameroonian forward has long been a target for Ruben Amorim as the United boss looks to bolster his attacking ranks. A $82 million deal made up of an initial $75 million payment with 4 further installments as well as a maximum of $7 million in bonuses has finally been reached. The Red Devils' first bid was a $64 million package, which the Bees quickly rejected at the beginning of June. The former France international joined Brentford for $7 million in 2019 and has gone on to score 70 goals in 242 games, including 42 in 136 Premier League matches, flourishing into one of the deadliest forwards in the country. Canada forward Olivia Smith has become the most expensive signing in women's football history by completing a $1 million move to Arsenal from Liverpool. The 20-year-old, who made her international debut at 15, has signed a 4-year deal with Champions League leaders. Smith's move broke the record set by Chelsea in January when they signed USA defender Naomi Gemma for $1 million from San Diego Wave. Smith, who only turned professional in 2023, joined Liverpool from Portuguese side Sporting a year ago for a club record fee of just over $232,000. Arsenal head coach Renee Seegers says Smith is an exciting young player who can make a big contribution. And the most expensive British player in Premier League is Declan Rice, who transferred to Arsenal for a fee of $122 million. This according to Transfer Market. BBC Sport notes that this transfer from West Ham United to Arsenal was a record-breaking deal. Here's a more detailed breakdown. Declan Rice, $105 million. Arsenal to West Ham United. Jack Grealish, $116 million. Aston Villa to Manchester City. Enzo Fernandez, $187 million. Benfica to Chelsea. It's worth noting that while some players may have been sold for higher fees, their moves were not on to English clubs, like Jude Bellingham's transfer to Real Madrid. I will end with the Ivorian winger Yaone Diomande has just switched leagues. He leaves CD Leganes to join RP Leipzig on a contract running until June 2030. He ranks among the top 10 under 20 transfer in Bundesliga history with a prize money of $23 million. He's also the first Ivorian ever to play for RB Leipzig. The left winger is set to embark on a new adventure in the Bundesliga. He will wear number 49 with his German league side. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. He was one man, but his spirit moved nations.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come.
Today, on Mandela Day, we celebrate the unity, resilience, and the hope that Nelson Mandela stood for. From Soweto to Dakar, Rwanda to Liberia. Tune in for special features, interviews, and stories that echo the heartbeat of the continent. Inspired by Madiba, because his story lives in all of us. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you that you chose to care.
Bonjour à tous. Nous aimerions entendre votre voix sur notre station de radio. Faites-nous plaisir et envoyez un petit mot ou un message de salutation à vos proches ou à vos présentateurs préférés de Channel Africa. Que vous soyez en Afrique, dans la diaspora ou n'importe où ailleurs dans le monde, nous voulons vous entendre. Envoyez vos messages de dédicace par email à info@channelafrica.co.za ou postez sur notre page Facebook, Twitter et Instagram avec le hashtag dédicace. Vous pouvez aussi nous faire une note vocale sur notre WhatsApp +27 66 408 87 42.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
It is exactly 20 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African Time. A group of civil society organizations, trade unions, as well as activists have called on the G20 finance ministers to take action to, quote, tax the rich and stop tax abuse by multinational corporations. The organizations say G20 countries, the UN Tax Convention, and the Financing for Development processes are aware of the need to build progressive tax systems in the world and within countries to address the multiple challenges of inequality, hunger, and resourcing for public good. For more on this, we joined on the line by Thami Ngubeni from the South African Tax Justice Working Group. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having us, and good day to your viewers.
So you, as the South African Tax Justice Working Group, along with various other stakeholders that are named in our introduction, are calling for a wealth tax. And you're calling for that wealth tax now as the Finance Minister in KwaZulu-Natal and as South Africa prepares for the G20 meeting in November. What motivates this call? Why?
Thanks, Thami. I think it's important to place the call within the contextual factors, both locally and internationally. You remember that our budget was postponed 2-3 times this year, partly because we didn't have enough resources to finance public goods and services, right? And that is mainly because we didn't have enough revenue. And so we are saying that much more needs to be taken domestically to ensure that we raise revenue from those that have wealth and address the inequality that we have in the country. In addition to that, internationally, there are certain developments, including in the FFD, whereby South Africa has endorsed the Sevilla Platform for Action, which has committed to fair taxing high net worth individuals and ensuring that they pay their fair share, right? And this group includes Spain and Brazil, as well as Chile. Now, South Africa, through its advisor in the presidency, has endorsed this process. And we are saying that this action, together with a statement by the BRICS countries, which South Africa is also part of, they've endorsed the UN Tax Convention, right? And this is one of the measures that ensures that these countries collectively will move forward in international tax cooperation. Now, internationally, these are positive developments, which South Africa has supported. But locally, we are not seeing enough bold action to match this agenda and to ensure that we meet our domestic needs. And so this is why we are making this call right now.
Another call that you have been making is for corporations and the rich to stop avoiding tax. Tax avoidance being one of the major challenges that are being faced. From what you have experienced and seen, is South Africa doing enough to curb tax avoidance by the rich and by corporations?
Yeah, I think our tax policy is not doing enough to close the loopholes, particularly in illicit financial flows, right? And that both stems from the lack of capacity in SARS, which the National Treasury has, increased the allocations, and so hopefully that will improve there. But there are also lack of capital controls to ensure that there aren't outflows at the scale that we are experiencing, because these have an impact on, raising revenue. And as a result, you see the state taking regressive measures, such as cutting expenditure in order to meet its needs and the lack of revenue. And so it has direct implications not only for the revenue, but also for the resourcing in the country that could be used towards public services and job creation.
What has been the reaction from corporates? What has been the reaction, from the rich as far as increasing taxes?
Well, obviously there is a pushback on this issue, particularly from those that seek to protect their interests and their assets, right? understandably so, because it means that the status quo is disturbed and the state is playing an active role in addressing inequality, right, which is its prerogative as set out in the Constitution. But these are based on largely narrow views that investment will be reduced if we tax the rich, or they'll take their resources elsewhere. And we're saying that there are lessons internationally and resources such as the UN handbook on wealth taxes, which put in place some of the mechanisms that government can implement to ensure that they curb this outflow of capital. And these include, capital controls and other progressive measures. And so it's simply not enough for them to say that they'll take their finances elsewhere, but it's up to the state to act correctly, including, information sharing in platforms like the Sevilla Platform for Action and the G20 itself. Because what we noted is that when you read the media statement from the National Treasury, tax is largely, mentioned in passing. There is no mention of how these countries collectively will take measures to increase international tax cooperation at the UN and through supporting the UN Tax Convention, which is currently being negotiated for the next 2 years.
All right, Zimbali Ngubeni, thank you very much for your insight. Certainly a lot to be discussed during the G20 meetings ahead of the summit in November. We thank you very much for all that you've put on the table this afternoon, highlighting concerns that activists and trade unionists and some society organizations have around the taxing of the wealthy and corporations on the African continent. It is exactly 4:47 Central African time. In just a moment, a conversation with Sanlam's Mbali Majola on the role that corporate can play in uplifting communities.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
As we mentioned a bit earlier on today, Channel Africa, the SABC Foundation in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, today were in the Orange Farm community in the Gauteng province, South Africa. And we were there in order to build homes for those in need. This is part of the 67 minutes dedicated to community upliftment, part of International Mandela Day. Now, some of the corporates who've landed a helping hand are Sanlam and Henkel, among others. Joining us this afternoon is Mbali Majola, Program Manager for Staff Volunteerism at Sanlam. Mbali, so good to have you with us on Africa in Business on Channel Africa. How are you feeling after a day in the sun and a day of some heavy brick lifting? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Thami. I feel invigorated. Vitamin D is good for me.
It really was, quite an experience being out there today, and you and the entire Sanlam team were there as well. But what I found quite interesting is that Sanlam is actually the same age as Madiba.
Yes, we are. Sanlam was born on the 8th of June, 1918. And our icon, Madiba, was born on the 18th of July, 1918. So we are very proud of that legacy as the Sanlam Group and the Sanlam Foundation, that we share with that kind of a space with President Nelson Mandela.
So we saw you there and your team all in your blue, getting your hands dirty, climbing ladders, mixing, the mud along with all of us. Why is it important for businesses to reinvest in communities, and what are the ways that business can reinvest in communities?
Tadi and your viewers, one of the most patriotic things that you can do as a citizen of a country or a nation is to serve. And as Sanlam and Sanlam Foundation, we are a corporate that cares, and we want to live our value for care. We want to show confidence in our communities and the stakeholders that we service, that not only do we care about the business end of things, but we also care about their dignity, we care about shelter, we care about collaborating with other partners to make life better.
And collaboration being very key there. We did also see the MEC for Human Settlements in Gauteng, Ms. Mastara, there with us as well this day. Now, Sanlam is obviously a South African company, but you've got footprints not only on the African continent, but globally in Asia as well. Are there any other community upliftment projects that you as Sanlam are involved in beyond South Africa's borders?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Tana, for that question. We have expanded our United for Impact program, which is our staff volunteerism program. It's called United for Impact. And we have expanded our impact to 7 other African countries this year, being Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Namibia, Botswana, Ghana, and Kenya. And we will be launching in those countries in collaboration with their respective foundations under the Sanlam Group umbrella, because we really do believe that impact is not just South Africa, but impact is global.
So what does it take for public-private partnerships, PPPs, to actually work? And why aren't we having more of these collaborations beyond Mandela Day, or are we?
We are moving towards being more corporate that care. I believe that I have seen a very great move over the last 5 years or so, where most private organizations or corporates are really coming together, not only amongst one another, but in partnering with government, partnering with public organizations, civic organizations, in understanding that we cannot look in one place for all the solutions. So rather than criticize, we all do need to have a round table and put our integrity on the table, transparency on the table, and collaborate with one another in coming up with solutions and making life better and making all our people live with confidence.
Mbali Majola, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I must say we had a fabulous time earlier on today in Orange Farm. Wishing you and your team more of the best. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Thami. Bye.
Thank you. That's Mbali Majola. She's Program Manager, Staff Volunteerism at Sanlam. She takes us to exactly 4:52.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Oh yes, we're all about business right here on Africa in Business on Channel Africa, hosting, as we do every single Friday, Victor Khumoswana, author of Africa is Open for Business and Africa Bounces Back. Victor is also the Executive Director for Marketing and Communication at the University of Limpopo. Good to have you with us once again, Victor.
Good to have you, to be back on your show, Thami. Well, I'm hosting your show.
Well, look, we do this together. It's a dance that you and I do. It's a business dance every single Friday, and one that I certainly always look forward to. Good news for Standard Chartered Kenya's sustainable finance. I mean, we see their assets growing quite significantly.
You know, this is stunning because, you know, Standard Chartered, or a Stan Chart as they call it, it's a British bank, of course, and it's been in Africa for nearly 170 years. But to have them grow their business, their income, sustainable income by 132% is unparalleled. And, you know, sustainable income is a very interesting concept because it's what people, you know, you've heard many people say the business of business is business, to suggest, you must just make money at all costs. But what is becoming apparent is that unless you consider the environmental impact, you consider the societal considerations, the governance issues, your business is not going to be sustainable. So banks like Stan Chart, which are into sustainable finance, and they are into wealth management, and they are into cross-border trade, you know, letters of credit and all that, are now being forced to think about the kinds of businesses they finance, the initiatives that they provide funding for. And because their business is emphasizing the lower carbon emissions, which went down in the company by more than 50%, I mean, by 79%, the energy consumption. So they are not just doing business and lending and say, let's get money. They are asking whether they are using less energy, whether they are reducing their carbon footprint, but they do the same thing also in the lending that they do. So they prioritize kinds of businesses that are going to either lead to sustainability, and in this case, they have been emphasizing since 2024 women empowerment businesses and youth. They call it future makers, where they emphasize enterprises either owned by young people or that will have an impact on the welfare of young people. So it's proof that you can do well financially by doing good. In other words, doing things that are having a social impact in the long run.
And talking about social impact, I think this one is very much of a double-edged sword as far as Total Energy's LNG project is concerned. We see Mozambique now clearing the path for that multi-billion rand project.
Yeah, Total Energies, and the reason they call themselves Total Energies, they are also saying we might be in petroleum, but we are also thinking green. They are now emphasizing the energy part more than just the petroleum part. This is a liquefied natural gas project, a $20 billion project, which had been put on hold in the Cabo Delgado province. The Cabo Delgado province is the northern province of Mozambique, which if you go north from Cabo Delgado, you end up in Tanzania. And that's where the insurgency has been happening. And the discovery was made in 2010. But because of the 2021 insurgency, the Al-Shabaab insurgency, they had to pause. And you saw the involvement of Emmanuel Macron, president of France, come into South Africa to lobby President Ramaphosa because he was at the time leading SADC. And then they went into Mozambique. So last week there was a meeting between Patrick Poyan, who is the CEO of Total Energies, with the president of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo. And then the energy minister is saying, we are now ready to resume the project. Because, you need the jobs that can come with it. In March, if you recall, there was a $5 billion loan from the U.S. Export-Import Bank, and there was also another bond that gave an additional $1.7 or so billion in loans. So this project is really ready. If you have reached financial close, you have investors who are willing to give you the money, it must get to production. This is the stage that you announced that you are ready to go. But remember the involvement of Rwanda. They were sending troops into Mozambique to quell the violence. And people said, what are they getting involved for? Well, apart from containing the insurgents of people who might come into Rwanda via Tanzania, they secured a business for their own security enterprise under the Crystal Venture stable.
A very, very big story, Victor Khumoswana. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it at that for this afternoon, but I think it was really worth the time of getting into that $20 billion Total Energies LNG project. This is after years of delay, now ready for the go-ahead. We thank you, Victor, and look forward to being with you again next week.
Thank you, Thami. Have a good weekend.
Have a great one. Two of the other stories that we really wanted to chat about really is Tanzania's drive towards a digital economy that's gaining momentum as the number of internet users continue to increase. And Ivory Coast issuing its first samurai bond, raising $336 million through a 10-year note at a 2.3% coupon. That's how African business comes to a close on this Friday, making way for Vue d'Afrique. Bonjour, Joël.
Bonjour, Thami. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs. Restez connectés. On parlera aujourd'hui de la journée internationale Mandela Day et aussi de la dissolution de la commission électorale indépendante au Burkina Faso, mais encore au Cameroun, où notre correspondant fera le bilan des candidatures déclarées à la présidentielle. C'est tout de suite sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci, Thami.
Merci beaucoup, Joël. Well, that's how we come to the end of this week's edition of Africa in Business. It certainly has been a very busy one. Thank you to our sterling team, our producer Mabo Boloka, technical operator Catherine Maleka, on social media Nomalanga Butelezi, from the news desk Jwalane Tulo Ngwepe, economics desk Nosipo Zuma, and from the sporting desk Figile Lingwati. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This has been Africa in Business on Channel Africa, making way now for the French desk. Give yourself a splendid Friday further. Goodbye.
Vue d'Afrique. un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa. Rendez-vous du lundi au vendredi avec Joël Mouteba sur Channel Africa de 15h à 16h, temps universel. Channel Africa